What's up, family? It is so good to see you. This is the Endangered Species Unapologetically podcast, your neighborhood barbershop that is full of news, politics, and informed conversations. You know how we do in the shop. We are forging a fair and just world by telling our own stories right here. My name is Devon Morris. I'm manning the last chair in the back of the room. So be like my play cousin. Come on in, play some games, talk your ish, and enjoy yourself. We got a chair coming up for you next. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is episode number 8. Today, we're supposed to talk about the American Revolution like we said we would do last week, and how the American Revolution was really all about economic freedom. However, I'm gonna have to pivot. We'll try to get into that a little bit during this conversation because I don't want to hold you all day. But with the fact that there's been a lot of voting going on, people are out at the polls, there's a lot of people that have a lot of different opinions, and I'm starting to see a lot of celebrities just kind of jump out there. And rightfully so, they have the platform and they should. I would love to have some conversations with some of these celebrities just to talk about, current state, strategy, and tactics. And I can say that I feel like everybody wants the same thing, but I can say to you that I may not agree with all the tactics. So let me bring up a couple things that's interesting that kind of shows the state of where we're at. There's a senator, House representative, I don't know which one he is, right? Mitch McConnell. During a debate with Amy McGrath, the guy was actually laughing when she started talking about COVID-19 relief for the average American. Okay, it's one of those things where I don't know if she heard him laughing, snickering, giggling, whatever he was doing, but that's not a good look, man. That's just not a good look. Why isn't it a good look? Dude, right now, you all are pushing for Amy Coney Barrett to become the actual Supreme Court justice, and no question that is likely going to happen. I see more on the television. I see more everybody showing up in terms of all of these leaders between the House and the Senate just showing up to deal with this thing. When the American people, stimulus packages and everything else, just to kind of going by the wayside. It just been going by the wayside. I mean, you guys would not even come back in a session to deal with some of these things. And likely you could have dealt with most of these things virtually, okay? Because I see, for example, Senator Kamala Harris kind of virtually in the session. So it's not like you couldn't do that as well and push with the same effort. What's interesting is that some of you all may not remember or may not remember the name Myra Consenta Selby, who was actually nominated by Obama, and ultimately it didn't happen. It kind of like expired January 3rd, 2017, when Trump came into office, and ultimately Amy Barrett was put in place. There's a little bit of history there that we don't think about. And the truth of the matter is, we probably should be sitting back for a moment. And I know that right now is a big push. Nobody questions the push right now, okay? Since George Floyd died, was assassinated, was murdered. Since that time, there has been a major push of, hey, we want to make sure that black folk are good, right? And I understand it. But over the years, we have had demands that have been put in place, strategies, tactics, all kinds of things in terms of moving forward. And those things have roughly been ignored or died out within months. Okay? Do we have that big push for that right now? I can't say yes to that. No, I can't say that. But I can say some people are thinking about it and they're trying. Okay? So the Amy Coney Barrett, the actual Supreme Justice hearing, the nomination thing, you might want to take that one on the chin. Okay? Because they got the votes and they're pressing forward, and they're going to push forward with that more than pushing forward with things that really matter more to the American people. Okay? Now, that being said, I won't complain about that. Okay? But something interesting happened, and I wasn't paying attention to it because I've actually worked through the weekend. And with working through the weekend, I didn't pay attention to a lot of the news that was going on. But one thing that I saw on CNN was, and in general, people taking shots at Ice Cube. Now, I remember Ice Cube NWA days. I was probably way more fond of Ice Cube the moment he left. Okay? Didn't understand. Much younger then. But it's the album. When he got with Chuck D, when he got with the Bomb Squad, it was a different kind of lyric that you heard from Ice Cube. An intelligent man. I hear about Puffy, Sean Combs, doing an interview with Charlamagne the God. Hear about that too, and some of the things that they said. And then also, I hear about Megan Thee Stallion's New York Times op-ed, and an appearance that she made. Now, just to kind of take it backwards and just kind of move forward, I'll end with Ice Cube because I think I'd like to take his platform just a little bit further because that's where I see most of the meat, okay? And we'll talk about the problem in terms of tactic. And again, it's not a criticism of any of these people, because we all need to work together. And I understand that. When I say I understand Ice Cube's frustration, I understand why he moved how he moved. I get it, man. I really, really do get it. But let's have a quick conversation. Megan Thee Stallion. She wrote an article, New York Times, about protecting black women. Okay, about protecting black women. It's one of those things in life where I agree with you that there's a general feel of black women not being protected. I agree with that, okay? And the only problem I have is that I would hope that most black women that are in my circle around me feel as protected as I can protect them. The problem you have is black women not feeling protected is a direct result of this white supremacy, right? Because the problem you have is that the people that should be protecting black women are black men. Okay, that makes sense. But it's hard to protect someone when anytime you step up to do anything, you get torn apart. Or let's just put it a little different than that. You don't even make it to a place as a man where you can actually help. So you look at things in general, laws that are in place. Most laws in place, the one group of people that they do all kinds of restrictions in terms of gun laws is black folk. Now, so you think about somebody like Medgar Evers who got shot, standing in front of his house by somebody who was way, 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 way far away, right? We talking about a veteran. We're talking about somebody who would have probably pulled out his gun and shot back with no problem. Probably would have won that battle, okay? We're talking about me being raised in the city of Chicago, and you know what? We weren't allowed to be anywhere near guns, okay? Now, probably because I was in a big city. I get it. I understand. But there have been laws put on the books that black men, black people, can't have weapons like that. The jail times are much more for black men who violate things like that. So when you think about, I have this black man who wants to do everything to protect his family, but the only way he can protect his family is through his physical prowess, and that's it. Everybody else can use whatever means they have available to them to protect their family. But black men in particular, it becomes a problem. And I'm not even saying anything about black men being put in jail disproportionately. All those things matter because guess what? When you're a felon, you can't carry a gun. You're not supposed to do certain things once you're a felon, right? Okay? So I understand that. But what does that do for us and our relationship to black women? It kind of locks us down, okay? I can only imagine people during slavery, men and women working together to meet whatever the master needed, and that person getting upset at one of the women and then beating that woman. What does the man do? Well, I'm going to say for sure there were some men who made the attempt and died as a result. We have a history of men standing up and being lynched, pretty much being taken apart. Black mothers making sure that if their son was to get into anything whatsoever in the South, let's send them up north so and then we can make sure that they don't get them, right? See, in the world that we currently live in, black men don't have the rights, even the resources to protect black women. Now, look, I'm talking about in a general sense, right? Because end of the day, truth of the matter is, I'm a licensed gun holder. I'm a licensed carrier, period. Being a licensed carrier, okay, anybody comes to my house, we're gonna have an issue. I get that. Women in my circle feel very well protected. When I was at my aunt's house and there was somebody fiddling around in the yard, I went out there, gun in hand, they're gone. No issue, right? But what do you do if you have a systemic problem where you don't make the guns? Like the institutions don't support you carrying a gun. The institutions don't support you protecting your women. The only way you're allowed to protect your women is fisticuffs. That's it. And okay, most black men have no problem with that. But if I can protect my women with my fist and other people got guns, I'm already losing. So then let's just take a moment and step back and say to ourselves, well, we're not really talking about a racial issue. Let's just say we're talking about black issue, and let's keep it at the black issue. Okay? In general, most men that I know, that I am friends with, that I surround myself with, are men that are willing to protect women. period. Willing to protect women in general. Any woman. Okay? Now, when you start talking about they called you the B word, they called you this, is that worth going to jail over? I wouldn't think so. Okay? But most men that I know, that I'm circled around, would have no problem protecting the women in their circle. Their mothers, their aunts, their sisters, their girlfriends, their wives, etc. Okay? So now I say to myself, and this is by no means blaming the victim. Truth of the matter is, Megan Thee Stallion got shot in the foot, probably both feet. That's a problem. That's a problem. And any men that associated with Megan should have had that taken care of by now. Period. Any men that have any association should have had that taken care of by now. I know for sure when my cousin had a problem where her husband was beating on her, and my cousin is like my sister, so it's like my sister cousin, right? So when he was doing whatever he was doing and I got whiff of it, I said, I'm on my way. And the guy disappeared. I haven't seen him since. I think that's been at least 15 years. I haven't seen him at all, okay? Because I know as soon as I would have walked up to him, I would have punched him. It would have been a non-issue. It would have been an issue, just a non-issue whatsoever. So she didn't let me know, okay? My brothers didn't know, from what I can tell. But for sure, when that became an issue, I went there to take care of it. Dude's way bigger than me, we'd have handled some, win, lose, or draw, right? But the idea remains the same. As soon as I heard about it, I got in my car. Well, I was in my car, went on my way on over there, and he wasn't there, okay? And I said to him, look, man, I'm coming to see you. Okay, great. Does that happen for everyone? Does everyone have someone that's willing to do that? No, I agree. No. So now I say to myself, and I'm thinking, for Megan, I hope that her circle will have more men that will do some protecting. And I'm going to say, I guarantee you she has that. Okay? I guarantee you she does. Okay? But people attacking her for her getting shot, that's ridiculous. I don't care what color you are. If somebody attacks you, domestic violence, whatever it is, right? Nobody should be attacking you. And I know that people more than likely was all over social media just going in multiple directions on her. A lot of people supporting her, but I cannot imagine the people that were not supporting her. That is a problem, and those people should be smacked up. The big issue is that when you think about it, in this world of the internet, right, there's a lot of people that can hide behind a screen. And in terms of hiding behind a screen, that's a problem. It's just a problem. So by no means am I blaming the victim. My mother had a problem with domestic violence. And when I got, here's the deal, right? When I was a boy, I couldn't do anything about it. But when I became a teenager and I felt my chest was out, I felt like a man, we beat on them. I beat on them, we beat on them. It's just truth. I remember this guy doing something to my mother. I remember that clearly. And I remember me, two of my boys going over there, and we beat the stank out of him. The thing that's the killer is I didn't even touch him. And I remember clearly, and this hurt my heart probably more than anything else. Hurt my heart more than anything else. My mother told me to stop. She told me to stop. Now, in telling me to stop, that's one thing, right? But how do you tell me to stop when I'm doing this for you? I'm doing this for you. So, black women, women in general, don't be complicit in those things. Domestic violence is a problem. The way we treat you as men is a problem. Okay? You know, I had somebody say to me just the other day, I was mansplaining them, and I didn't even know what it was because most of them, I've never done it to the women in my circle, right? And I was confused. I asked her, hey, I had to get off a call with her and say, if you want to talk about it one-on-one, we can. But I apologize, end of the day. Because that's not something I'm used to. I don't want to be seen as hurting women by no stretch of the imagination. I want everybody to have equal voice. So, domestic violence is real. There's no question about it. Domestic violence is real. You know, I have an aunt that is, tough. I have an aunt that's real tough. And if she came to me crying about domestic violence, I'd be questioning the world because she can humbug. She knows how to fight. But that's the only person on the planet that I'd be thinking to myself, well, you sure that you didn't beat him up? So that being said, the point I'm making here is that Megan has the right to protect women, period. And in terms of her circle, I don't know what her circle is. But if her circle doesn't include men that are going to protect her, going to make sure that those kind of situations don't happen to her, then I hope she changes her circle, and pulls a few of those people in. I don't care about, I love the songs that she make. Absolutely love the songs she make. I love, she got the right to do whatever she wants to with her body. People, I kind of looked on the internet and people talking about her shaking a twerking and all this other stuff. And you know what? So what? So what? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What I do remember more than anything with Megan is I remember her getting on the internet at one point and saying to people, this is my real life. And looking at her face and seeing her being in pain. And it's one of those things where you wish you can do something about it. I couldn't. I don't know her. I couldn't. But if I did know her, I would have. Okay? So, as a black man, do I ever want black women to feel like they're not protected? I don't. But also I know that the minority in this country does not have the ability to grab the wagons and circle the community to protect the community. Okay? That's a systemic problem. White nationalists, yeah, they can do things to us and get immunity, basically. So, that being said, no problem with the op-ed. She's an entertainer, probably a philanthropist, definitely an entrepreneur, and I don't want to see women being hurt. I just don't want to see them being taken advantage of. This is the reason why I don't like a lot of things, right? So that is one thing. Okay? Now, another thing that happened this past week was Charlamagne the God did a actual interview with Puffy, Sean Combs. And, it's one of those things with that interview where so you have an interview with someone, and In that interview, the things that I remember, because I turned it off after I heard what I needed to hear at the beginning parts. I remember when Puffy had pushed the right to vote. I do remember that. Right to vote. I remember that, right? Voting is something we should do, right? And I remember Charlamagne the God asking him, saying not to vote, just saying, okay. And clearly Puffy's like, look, man, we got to get Trump out of office, whatever it takes. Everybody get your butt out and go vote. Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. Okay? But Charlamagne asked him a question that I think is a super important question. And the question he asked was simply, should we be the ones doing it? Puffy gave what I believe was the right answer. And that answer is no. Somebody like Puffy, he's not the first of entertainers. By being in a position where he's not the first means that he stands on the shoulders of other entertainers that have sacrificed themselves for both the business and the cause. And they have lost business, have lost careers, have had points where they've been shut down a little bit because they supported the cause. Okay? The cause being, black people ultimately having economic inclusion, or basically dealing with the systemic racism thing, right? He said, hey, they're not the right people. And fundamentally, again, he's right. The right people are the people that have the right plans, the ones that think about this all day. You have many, many stalwarts that we could go have conversations with that know our history. But here's the deal. The problem that I did have was that he gave the impression that we're like building the first black political party. Like, for real? You got to go back to the books on that one, bruh. You do. Because I remember the agenda of Farrakhan, Million Man March. I remember that. I did not go to the march, but I remember the agenda and me seeing that. I remember that, seeing that back in college. We're like at the 25-year mark or something like that of the Million Man March, so it's a good thing to bring up. And the statement is clear. I have never seen, at least in Chicago, I ain't seen them everywhere, I've never seen Muslims, the black Muslims, be unorganized. I've always seen them be organized, right? I've always seen them put a wholehearted effort together. I'm not saying everything that they do is right, but what I am saying is in terms of an agenda, I've seen folks have agendas. And they're not the only ones that have ever had an agenda, okay? There's been black political parties put together since forever, okay? There have been black folks that have petitioned for our rights forever, okay? What I would love to see would be a coalition of some kind, built in a way where we can take the various agendas that have happened over time, the various parties that have existed, and look at their bullet points. Look at the things that they're pushing for. And I would almost guarantee you that across the board, 80%, maybe 90, 95% of that stuff is the same. I guarantee you that it is, okay? So what if we was to get these smart people in the room, okay? The smart people in the room. You have a lot of professors that exist. You have a lot of people that, and I'm not talking about the people that don't have knowledge of history. I'm really talking about historians more than anything else, people who deal in politics. I'm really not talking politicians. I'm not talking about people who are running for office. So this is not a situation where I'm saying grab Jesse Jackson. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying grab anybody that is run for office, because a political party doesn't have to be about putting forth a candidate. That's not the statement. But what I'm hearing from people is something that's interesting. We're not going to vote. We're not going to vote. But voting is one of the tactics that you would use to help to push your agenda. So I'm assuming that I'm not leaving the United States of America for this election or the next one, okay? That I'm gonna be around, right? Now, I don't have any plans to run for office, anybody's office whatsoever. I have zero plans to run for anybody's office. But here's what I do know. My vote is a tool, a tactic. It's a something. It's a something, okay? To help me get to an end. Now, if I'm not going to be in office, I want somebody in office that is going to have a direct line, and don't forget, because I need to be in that face, about that specific end. See, the battle isn't about putting someone in office. That's not the battle. That's not the battle. You know, you kind of, I would say you're at 5% of the journey. Like, that's not the 100% point of the journey, right? You're like 5% of the journey. And being at 5% of the journey, it's kind of like you're still at the beginning part. You're still in the initiation part, right? Because the thing that I believe is true is Obama loved having him in office. Did he do much for black folks? Nah. The general consensus is that, okay? But I could also say that black folks gave him a pass. They gave him a complete pass. Because if Obama was going to do something for black folks, it was going to require that we be in his face all the time. See, when I think about a party of some kind, I don't think about a party just to get somebody elected. I think about a party that's on their back. Every single day, they get to see us and say, hey, buddy, remember that promise you made? Well, we're here to collect on that. Oh, we're going to be here to collect on that every day. Oh, you ain't going to do it. Oh, there's hell to pay for that. Okay? And I'm not talking about, look, you going to do this. No, you're going to do this now. Not like 4 years from now. You're going to do this now. We're not going to wait till you to work with you towards your reelection. We're going to put somebody else in that's going to help meet our agenda. But us on them all day, every day. So, I go back to Diddy's statement. He's not the right person to do that. But did folks like Aretha Franklin support the civil rights movement? Yes. You look at a bunch of the halfway conscious black entertainers back in the day, and their foot was in the movement. Maybe not marching, but financially, yes. So the Diddy's, the Jay-Z's, the Ice Cubes of the world, they should be in the background. I get that they do have the platform and they should help give the platform to others. But they got the ability through financially supporting the direction that we're moving in. So, is Diddy right that we need to vote? Yeah, we need to vote. You know, when I think about Mitch McConnell laughing at the woman, Amy McGrath, when I think about that, that's a joke, man. That's an absolute joke. I mean, for real, that's a joke. When I think of Lindsey Graham saying, hey, black folks can go any place in South Carolina, North Carolina, whatever state he's in, can go any place here, as long as they're Republican, basically. Conservative is what he said, conservative. But the idea is for you to have the guts to say that, dang, man. That's like being able to say, man, I know they ain't gonna do nothing to me. I already know they're not gonna do anything to me. Since I know they're not gonna do anything to me, I'll say what the hell I wanna say. I'm not even scared because they know that the people that support them is gonna support them regardless, because the people that support them, they're serving their agenda. They're serving their agenda. Yeah, they're serving their agenda. So that right there is, I think, again, Diddy's right. Diddy's right in that. But Diddy's wrong in terms of the political party because there's been all kinds of political agendas that have happened over the years. And it would be amazing if we could actually come together and actually take a look at our history and create an agenda based on that. You know, my teachers like Dr. Greg Carr, not that I've ever met Greg Carr. I love what him and Karen Hunter is doing on YouTube right now because that is such a great thing, that Saturday class thing. When I think about somebody like Dr. Boyce Watkins, and he's doing a lot of work with Dr. Claude Anderson, when I think about people like that, even when I think about Ice Cube, right? I do see people that have that history, that embody, you know, the ancestors, people that moved on, people that had the knowledge, tried to do things, right, but wasn't successful, but that knowledge remains somewhere in our community. And the question becomes, can we pull on that knowledge? Can we get together and bring those things to the forefront? And I believe we can. I believe we can. So if you want to move from being in a situation of moving from being an endangered species, I think that is a step that we need to take. Now, am I worried about it for this election? Not at all. I'm not worried about it for this election at all. When I say at all, I mean at all. Okay? But I am worried about it for 2024 and then every other election that happens from this point on. Because it's just not the presidency that we need to worry about, right? I mean, when I went in to vote, I literally did research, right? I looked at every single person that I had to vote for. Every single person. And you know what I was doing? I was thinking about things like, okay, over here in Tarrant County, that's where Atiana Jefferson died. You know, the sheriff has been the sheriff the whole time. I don't want him in office no more. So because of what happened in terms of Atiana Jefferson and me not seeing the right kind of justice that I would expect to have been seen, I see that sheriff as being a problem. I see all the judges in the area as being a problem. So you know what I did? I made sure that my vote didn't go for them. Then I also looked at the people that I was going to vote for and looked at their agenda. What do you plan to do? What do you plan to do? It was time consuming, but here's the deal. My vote was a community vote. And what I mean by a community vote, it wasn't a vote for me. It was a vote based on the people in my circle. And I voted based on what we needed and in agreement with what we needed. So For the folks that are in that circle that couldn't vote, my vote represented them because we had a conversation. And in having a conversation, we picked who my vote was going to be cast for. I would have loved to have done that at a much greater scale. I didn't. I don't have that kind of platform. Not yet, at least, right? Not yet. But that's how I was thinking, okay? Because we do have the horses, we do have the people that can do that research and figure out these are the best candidates for our agenda. That's what I want to see. That's exactly what I want to see. So I actually applaud, I completely applaud Ice Cube. Now, why do I applaud Ice Cube? Because when I look at Ice Cube, a contract with Black America, you know, black hand, pen in the black hand, I like it. I like it. In general, I like it. I can't hate on Ice Cube, right? He has, 13 points here? You know, and I went through and I reviewed some of the points here. And the reason why this came to my attention more than anything else was because he ended up being on CNN. I was like, Ice Cube's on CNN. Let me take a look. What's going on? What's really happening, right? Just being a little blind about it. Just being a little blind about it is what I've been, because I've been working on lots and lots of things, right? And so I see good stuff here, no question. I know that Ice Cube more than likely got some people that he's working on in the background on these kind of things, and that he's being the face. He's being, you know, he's using this platform, and I can't be angry at him for that. I don't want to see him sacrificed. I see how people are coming at him, taking shots at Ice Cube. I looked at his spirit. I looked at his face, right? As he were having the conversation, right? And him needing to get that point across, right? But the statement is clear. You know, as he said, both camps reached out to him. He didn't reach out to either camp, so the Republican and the Democratic camps reached out to him. And he said that the Republican camp was willing to play ball, right? And in terms of the Republican camp willing to play ball, my problem is in him meeting with the Republicans, and I can't say I disagree with a meeting, but I can say the person that he met with, or the representative of the person, because if I was him, I wouldn't have met directly with Trump, because I'd have been like, you're going to give me the corona. But in terms of him meeting with that camp, if it's true, and I believe it's true because he didn't really deny it, and I don't see Ice Cube as being a guy that just lies, right? He may not say what the truth was, but he didn't deny it. I know you're not going to put something on Cube's table that he didn't do and him not say no, right? In him meeting with the camp, my problem is I firmly believe that camp will do everything to deceive him, will do everything to attack him, to do everything to lie to him, will do everything to get our votes and then do nothing about it. Okay? I understand his frustrations, right? I really do, because I have the same frustrations as a black man in America. I have the same exact frustrations. But that tactic of meeting with them was probably not the right move. And it's not a move that Cube should have done anyway. There should be enough people that's supporting what Cube is doing for Ice Cube to really, really, really not to have jeopardized himself. Because, for example, if I was on Ice Cube's team and I went and met with the representative from Trump's team, nobody would have cared about Devon Morris meeting with Trump's team. Nobody would have gave a flying F about it. Nobody would have done that. They wouldn't even cared whatsoever. But since it was Ice Cube, And because of Ice Cube's platform, people did care. We need to protect our people that do have that platform. We need to protect them because if they lose that platform, we lose it for all of us. And so it should have never been Ice Cube at the forefront of that meeting. Maybe he wasn't, I don't know, I wasn't there. But Ice Cube's team versus Ice Cube having a meeting is a totally different thing, and he could deny that the meeting ever happened, right? And so I am going to take to heart a lot more of what is in the contract. And I am likely going to sign the contract in support of what Ice Cube is doing because I know his heart is in the right place. My question is, can we get an agenda, black people? Can we get an agenda, right? Can we pull together a party, right? Where we do have an agenda, where we have a strategy, and we determine the tactics that we're going to take moving forward. Can we do that? I believe that we can. So, that being said, I want to go ahead and move on and talk a little bit about what we were supposed to talk about from the beginning. And what I would like to do is present to you a story about a figure in the American Revolution that had a huge impact on it. Let's jump into that story right now. James Armistead was born into slavery around 1750. He was the property of William Armistead in New Kent County, Virginia. Armistead received permission from his master to volunteer in the American Revolution during the siege of Richmond in 1781. He served under Marquis de Lafayette's French units as a spy, posing as an escaped slave. And yes, I'm talking about the same Lafayette from Hamilton, the play. Soon enough, Armistead was able to become a servant of the British commander Cornwallis. As a native Virginian, he had extensive knowledge of the terrain, which allowed him to help the British navigate the area. This gave him direct access to the British War Department. He was able to relay information back to the Americans. For example, Armistead let Lafayette and Washington know about battle reinforcements during the Battle of Yorktown. This resulted in the final victory and surrender of Lord Cornwallis on October 17, 1781. Like any good native black American who served in the American wars, Armistead was returned to life as a slave with his owner. The Emancipation Act of 1783 gave freedom to slaves that served in the American Revolution. This is interesting because the definition of slave soldier did not apply to spies. Armistead started unsuccessfully petitioning Congress. When Marquis de Lafayette returned to America in 1784 and learned of this injustice, he wrote an invaluable testimonial about Armistead's service.
This is to certify that the bearer by the name of James has done essential services to me while I had the honor to command in the state. His intelligences from the enemy's camp were industriously collected and faithfully delivered. He perfectly acquitted himself with some important commissions I gave him and appears to me entitled to every reward his situation can omit of. Done under my hand, Richmond, November 21st, 1784. Lafayette.
This letter was instrumental in helping Armistead receive his freedom from the Virginia General Assembly in 1787. As a token of his appreciation, he added Lafayette to his name in honor of Marquis de Lafayette. Armistead lived the rest of his life as a free man, married and raised children on his 40 acres of land. James Lafayette died in 1832. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that little story about James Armistead Lafayette, because it's a good story on how us as black folks have supported this American cause from the beginning, this little old experiment that we call America. But after every single war, man, we've always had to still fight for our freedom, okay? But the underpinnings of that led to, I gotta stop this. Okay, take two. Hey, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that story, and we'll have more stories coming like that in the future. But I brought that story to you to talk to you about the American Revolution and how it really, its basis is on economic freedom, not on the fact that, no taxation without representation. I mean, it's a good slogan, but it's just part of what is the myth of America, right? Now, that being said, as a child, I was taught that back in December 16th, 1973, December, I'm saying my birth year. Let's start that over, because I ain't got to mess up on that. Okay, stop, reset, start. Take 3. Welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that story about James Armistead Lafayette. It's a wonderful story about how us as Native Black Americans always have given ourselves to this American experiment and not have received the same love in return. But let's put that to the side. Here's the deal. The American Revolution was actually an economic revolution. All about economic freedom, not about people throwing tea into water, right? Not about really no taxation without representation. So I was taught, as from being a little bitty kid, that back December 16th, 1773, colonists not happy about being taxed, the 1773 Tax Act, they weren't happy about that. So since they had that tax and they wasn't being represented and being taxed without representation, they decided to all board a boat or 3 boats. Now, they disguised themselves as Native Americans or as Indians, as it would say, and they decided to throw a bunch of tea into the water. I think it was like 342 cases or buckets or whatever it was of tea across 3 different ships. The British East India Company was the folks that suffered that problem. Now, even though we kind of want to dream that dream, historians don't always give us all of the facts that we need to be aware of. And I want you to just take a step back for a moment and just look at it from a different perspective, right? They were serving the crown. Colonists were serving the crown. And that makes complete sense. The British obviously helped the Americans out in many, many ways, and that is to go without saying, okay? But here's the problem. The British were actually on the verge of a financial crisis, okay? They had a combination of a commodity that was helping to make some money. They were kind of inching toward imperialism in India. They had a sweet treat that they got out of the West Indies, and then they had this other commodity of slavery, right? And all these things has some, being built on the back of slaves to some degree, either slaves that they have some direct ownership with or indirectly, right? So what is that commodity? What are those commodities? Those commodities are tea, sugar, slaves, later on opium, right? So when it comes to tea, the crown, British folks, Europeans in general, had this wonderful love for tea. They got a taste of tea. It's bitter. You know what? We still love it though. The addition of sugar, so Spanish and Portuguese actually brought the whole sugar thing to the game. Once they did that, that turned tea into a whole different thing, right? And so really the British East India Company was actually going and trading with China. But China didn't want to trade anything with them in particular except for give them their goods, but they weren't buying anything in return. So they had to find ways to offset those goods in other places. And one of the major places where they offset tea to was to the American colonists, right? The American colonists took a big brunt of that. But when it comes down to it, they was also getting textiles from India that ultimately turned into them getting opium, but not in the 1770s. That's more like 1800s, like 1790, somewhere after that, right? Where that became a big deal. So we'll put that to the side for a moment. But they already been importing slaves because they would go to the coast and the East India Company was actually trading slaves, right? For other things like textiles and other things that existed that they were trading for. And they would bring slaves as well as these other commodities over to the American colonies. Well, the British East India Company had some financial troubles. And in having financial troubles, the Crown was going to do things to help them out, because what happened is that these private companies really were supporting the interests of the country, okay? So now the British Parliament was going to get them out of trouble. And over the years, beginning in the 1750s, they were getting them out of trouble by instituting different acts, okay? Somewhere early on in the 1960s, 1963, they actually had, 1763, they actually had the Trade Restrictions Act, where they cut off trading partners for the colonists, right? So now that means that these colonists that have rice, tobacco, indigo can't trade these different things to other people around the world because the British were cutting that off, right? Or at least taxing it, right? And then you have the Currency Act, where they wouldn't actually allow the actual colonists to create their own currency. Another problem. After that, the Stamp Act, where they started taxing any printed goods. And then after that, it was the Townshend Acts, where they taxed essential stuff, including tea, okay? Then there was the 1770 actually Boston Massacre that occurred. And then after that, you got the actual 1773 Tea Act that actually lowered the price of tea so they can try to create a monopoly, but also tax things tremendously. So the Americans are getting taxed all over the place. And what you're doing is you're peeling away the financial freedoms that they're gaining, because the southern states in particular, are making a lot of money from having free labor, okay, and being able to have these labor-intensive things like rice, tobacco, cotton, indigo being grown and being able to trade those with other people, right? They're making money, right? And so now what they're doing is they're finding every single way to tax these colonists, right? So I understand a statement. No taxation without representation. But they didn't really want representation. They didn't really care about representation, because all representation was going to do was still get them taxed. So you had this thing brewing over the years, and then ultimately the Americans created a Declaration of Independence, and in 1776 decided to move forward and take things in the direction that they needed to. But understand something that is true about all that. The British economy was based on slavery. Them getting tea is one thing. That tea, likely because they were trading Africans, was on the back of slaves or indentured servants at a minimum. Now, the reason why I say that is because they were taking Africans to China. They were taking Africans to India. They were taking Africans to the Americas, to the West Indies, because they were a good commodity to trade. Not to mention, in trading that commodity, you could also use that commodity to help you build your economy. So they were being traded for goods. The American, the colonists, their economy, the rice, the tobacco, the indigo. There were slaves that were actually doing all that work. In the West Indies, You absolutely know that the sugar cane, there were slaves, right? So in every aspect of these economies, right? If you look at what would later happen in terms of the opium trade, well, this British East Company was taking opium from India, Bengal, and actually sending that over to China, right? And so China actually banned it completely. And once they banned it, then they would take that same opium and sell it to smaller traders who would get it into China in a different way. But there was a famine caused in Bengal, and part of it was due to the need of trying to build out this economy for Great Britain. So realistically, between the Americas, the West Indies, the British, all of their economies was based on the backs of slaves. Slaves actually doing the work for the goods that were going to be sold or being traded directly for financial gains. It wasn't until the 1830s that the British decide, hey, this is not such a good thing. Matter of fact, I would almost say to you that we might have been free sooner if the British Crown would have kept hold of the Americas. Because at least by the 1830s, at least 20, 25 years, 30 years prior to our actual emancipation, they would have outlawed slavery, and then we would have gained from that. But even prior to that, don't get it twisted. There's always been Africans, native blacks, that have fought for their freedom. In Massachusetts back in, I believe, 1773, there were blacks that petitioned the government of Massachusetts for their freedom, and I believe actually got that freedom, but the governor of Massachusetts vetoed it and made sure that it didn't happen. So there's many, many cases, even where you have some popular names like a Prince Hall of Masonic fandom, who was a part of trying to make sure that these native blacks, these Africans, actually receive just due and gain their freedoms, because guess what? They're hearing about these things. They're hearing about being free, and about, the Americans wanting to have this opportunity, right? So we've always fought for our freedom. Don't think that hasn't been the case. But don't think that the American Revolution was really over tea. It was not. The American Revolution happened as an all about economic freedoms, because the colonists needed to have economic freedom away from the British Crown. So, on that note, this has been a pleasure. I know we didn't talk about the American Revolution as long or as much as I wanted to, but if you have questions, please send them out to me or look it up for yourself. Other than that, enjoy your week. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for visiting the shop. There's absolutely no me without you. But before you walk out that door, make sure you visit us at Endangered Species Unapologetically.com. You will find ways to stay connected with us. Take a look at our show notes, other episodes, bonus material, as well as that merchandise that Hustle Man got over there in the corner. When you're ready to break those chains, we got some stuff there for you to make your life better. However, as the old folks would say, be safe out there, young blood. See you next week.